kind of random. What up, y'all? I am your host, Vegas, and this is a Hip Hop Now podcast tier list. Another tier list for the 99 and 2000s, 20s. But nevertheless, appreciate you for coming through. You know what to do. Subscribe if you like everything you see in here and all the content on this channel. Hit that like button if you like this episode, and leave a comment because you probably have a comment after this. Now, I've done a couple of different tier lists. I did 3, right? Catalogs, albums, hip hop albums. I did a Snoop Dogg joint. I did a Ghostface Killer, and I did a Nas and Jay-Z mashup of their best albums in their catalog. And like those albums, I tried to keep it confined to straight up traditional albums. So no compilations, no duets with somebody else, nothing like that. But today, we are going to do a tier list dedicated to a legend in the hip hop game, Common, formerly known as Common Sense, probably known as an actor to some of y'all, which kind of pains me a little bit. But today, you're going to find out that Common has 12 solo albums in his catalog. 12, right? Dating back to, I believe, 94, maybe 93, around that time somewhere. So we're going to get right into it. Here are the categories, as you can see. And if you're listening, well, you know, the video is in the description also, so you can watch it, or you can listen if you just need to listen. But everybody quarantined, so you're going to listen. If you're from the future, do I live? Okay, I'm just playing. But let's just get, that wasn't even funny. But let's just get right into the business, right? So the list, or the tiers, are starting at the top. Classic, of course. Like, why wouldn't it be? Then the next category is, how do you not own this? The middle category is Common Sense. The next category is, who are you right now? And the last category being sweater hats and picnic tablecloth pants. Now, for those who didn't get that, let's just start at the top real quick. Classic means classic. It means what it is. This means this is a bona fide hip hop classic to most hip hop heads, and to especially me. The next tier, how do you not own this, means this is a very good album. Damn near classic. If you call yourself a hip hop head, how do you not own this? Common Sense mean it's good. Who are you right now is, this doesn't look like a traditional Common album. It's not the worst, but I'm really not feeling it. Sweater hats and picnic tablecloth pants is just for whack albums, right? Just straight up whack. There it is. There are the categories. We're going to start in what I think I have these in order, and I'm using memory. I'm not anything else. So let's start with Common's debut album, Can I Borrow $1? Now, I got to be honest. I was not a fan of Common around this time. He had maybe 2 records I liked. So I was just kind of like, okay, well, it's whatever. And the music was fine for what it was, but I just was not into him at that point in time. So I'm going to say, who are you right now? Now, I didn't say this in the beginning because I think it goes without saying, but because some people need to hear it, this is my opinion. This is not to overrule anyone else's opinion. These are my opinions, my evaluation of these albums. Obviously, this tier list will be available to you, so you can create your own version as far as where you want the albums to land based off of your opinion of those albums. But for me, Common's first album is almost like it didn't happen. Now, that was Common Sense, though. Now, Common's second album, Resurrection, much better album. Still wasn't a huge fan, but I was looking a little closer like, yo, homie's different. And I got to put this in a, how do you not own this? Now, back in the day, I probably would have put this in common sense because there were probably maybe 3 or 4 records that let's put it this, let's keep it 100. There were probably 3 records I liked off this album a lot. Everything was cool, but a lot. But over time, I've got a better appreciation for this album and what he did at that time, even though I wasn't a fan yet. I wasn't a bona fide, let me go get that album fan. But I feel like this was more of Common's debut than his actual debut. I feel like Can I Borrow a Dollar was more so I got a record deal and I rap. Resurrection was, this is who Common is. This is who Common Sense is. You know what I'm saying? I think the identity was kind of stamped. When you listen to Can I Borrow a Dollar, it sounds like a record from a specific time in hip hop. Obviously, the rest do also, but his flow, his cadence, it's different on some tracks. Whereas Resurrection feels more like the Common we know. After that, the album that made me a Common fan, bona fide, check for every album after that, One Day It All Makes Sense, is a classic. I don't care what you say. Anytime you create an album that a man like myself can travel from New York City to Baltimore to school, whatever reason I went home, who cares? Buy an album from a dude I've never bought a whole album from and just say I'm going to listen to it. And by the end of that ride, not only have I listened to it at least 3 times, probably the entire ride, but I am a bona fide fan, like converted. Musically, excellent. Variety of songs, placement of songs, guest appearances, excellent. Cannabis is on here. Lauryn Hill is on here. CeeLo's on here. Like a couple of people are on here. It was, put it this way, it was like To Pimp a Butterfly before To Pimp a Butterfly. When I say that, I'm not talking about the actual music. I'm more so talking about how To Pimp a Butterfly, Kendrick Lamar's album, had a lot of collaborators, a lot of musical geniuses, you know what I'm saying, from rappers to jazz musicians. And it was just like this gumbo. And I feel like One Day It'll All Make Sense is that. You know what I'm saying? And it's, again, the variety in topics, from storytelling to straight spitting to, Get the Whack MC song. Like, it's everything on here. Personal records, it's everything. This is a bona fide classic. And he followed it up with an album that I'm just going to go out and say is another classic. Yep, I'm handing out classics to Common, just like that. Like Water for Chocolate. Dare I say, probably better production-wise than One Day It All Makes Sense. It's kind of the difference between A Tribe Called Quest's Low End Theory and Midnight Marauders. Both are classic albums from the group. You wouldn't really have Midnight Marauders without Low End Theory and what that did, but it's stepping the game up production-wise on that follow-up album. And like Water for Chocolate, having Jay Dilla just lace the beats, so many dope records on this album. This album is like peak Common, you know what I'm saying, as far as lyrically and musically. It was just perfect, you know what I'm saying, for the time, which, not everybody was making music like this, but at that time, neo soul was a little heavy, and a lot of people were like digging soul samples and stuff like that. It was happening for a while, don't get me wrong, but I just feel like this album is just so great. And for some time, just like with Midnight Marauders, because I loved One Day It'll All Make Sense so much, that I kind of was sleeping a little bit on Like Water for Chocolate, because I had just really discovered what was dope about Common, and I wasn't ready to move on to the next project. So when it came out, you know what I'm saying, I was hosting a radio show, you know what I'm saying, I was playing records off of it. I liked it a lot. And it's not just the song The Light, there were other records on there. but I just felt like it took me a little bit to just buy it and just vibe with it. And it didn't take long because, I mean, the records I heard were crazy dope. So, hey, it is what it is. Next up, Common shocked us all by releasing Electric Circus, which, before I place it, I'm going to say, at the time, right? At the time that it was released, I was completely disgusted with the album. I mean, I just gave y'all 2 albums that are classics, right? One Day It All Makes Sense and Like Water for Chocolate come out. You're expecting nothing but the best. This dude has been doing nothing but the best. And Electric Circus was like a 360 out of nowhere. He on the cover looking like Isaac Hayes. He with Erykah Badu dressing like he's a neighbor on Sesame Street or something like that. Like the black neighbor, like, hey, man, I got a sweater hat and I deliver your stuff. Now, the whack category here, sweater hats and picnic table cloth pants, was where I used to put this album. Straight garbage, I'll never listen to it again. And then a friend of mine convinced me to listen to it maybe 3 or 4 years back and said, yo, I think that it was just too soon for Common to release that album. She felt like it was dope back then, but she felt like it was too soon for him to release that. So I was like, you know what? I'll listen to it again because I've never listened to it since it came out. And I got to tell you, she's right. She's absolutely right. This album is aged well only because of what we've had since. I feel like musically, it's not a bad album. Not at all. But if you're looking for what Common did with these albums, you're kind of like, well, it ain't that. It ain't classic. It's not a how do you not own this? I think it's common sense. Now look, it went from being whack to me to being good. It's a good album for what it is. And that's kind of the point. It's a good album for what it is. And that's hard to argue, you know what I'm saying? Because again, if you take out the context from back then, because you're not back then, and you just listen to the music now and the collaborations, it's not as bad as you remember. Or at least that's how I felt, but we'll see. So then Common, basically fell off to a lot of us, but he came back with Kanye West and they produced B, and I got to put B as a classic. I'm sorry. I have to. The momentum, the songs, Kanye's beats, the Dave Chappelle Show appearance, lightning in a bottle. For real, like lightning in a bottle album. It was just like you were happy, you know what I'm saying? He was back to the Common you know and love, and he had a dope producer who gave him the right production to match his cadence, his voice, his flow, where he was at the time. It was perfect for what it was. Now, I'm not even going to lie. It's probably the one Common album that I liked a lot that I almost never go back to listening to. I'm not even going to lie. One Day It All Makes Sense, I always go back to. Like Water for Chocolate, sometimey. But Common's B, even though I'm calling it a classic, for some reason, I just don't go back to it. It has nothing that says nothing. I know somebody's going to say to themselves, why could it be a classic? You never go back and listen to it. I own it. I will go back and listen to it. Obviously, I have at some point, but not in the same way I've done others. And that's just because I'm playing favorites. If you have a favorite artist and to you, you feel like they have multiple classics, like I feel like, I'm a big Ice Cube fan. Death Certificate gets listened to at least a couple of times a year. And that came out a long time ago. He obviously has other dope albums, but that's the one I typically listen to. So it is what it is. Now, Common then followed that up with an album that I think is very underrated, and I'm putting it right in the how do you not own this category, Finding Forever. Dare I say, I probably like it more than B. As an album, I'm going to tell you why. I feel like, and this was also Kanye West and No ID mostly producing this, but with B, as excited and happy as I was to have Common back and form with Kanye West, prime producer Kanye West, back in the majority of the production, if not all. I believe he produced all of it, but I can't really remember. On B, I still felt like they just went in and did a number of records, but it never felt like a complete album. It just felt like a collection of songs written by Common and produced by Kanye West. But Finding Forever feels like an album. It has, and when you say, well, how does it feel like an album? To me, this is the thing I like to say. When I talk about like really good albums, whether they got skits or not, albums should feel like journeys. You know what I'm saying? Whatever that journey is, doesn't matter what the subject matter is. If you're going to make an album, it should sound like a journey. Now, if you're just going to make a bunch of songs for radio, then maybe you should make an EP. But some people do make albums that are just a collection of a bunch of songs. But when I say Finding Forever feels like a journey, it's like the soundscape, like they let some of the beats breathe, and the way the songs follow each other in the same way of One Day to All Make Sense, and Like Water for Chocolate. It has a journey to it as far as from listening from beginning to end. You know what I'm saying? You could tell they really sat down on this one and really dug in to put something together that was a little bit more meaty for hip hop fans, not just lyrically, but also musically. And I felt like B before that was just more so like, I'm back. What beats you got? That beats hot, that beats hot, that beats hot, that beats hot, and album. You know what I'm saying? As opposed to having some form of a vision. And then Common followed that up. Now hold up, I'm getting lost now. I'm gonna keep it a buck. I think after Finding Forever, I think let's just go. Let's just do this live right here on YouTube. Let's just go and look. Allmusic.com, shout out to them. This is where, I get some of my music facts from. A lot of radio hosts like to use this to get some information on artists. But we are stuck, so let's go here. Okay, I knew it. I didn't want to believe it, but I know it. So Common then came out with this album, Universal Mind Control. And I ain't even going to waste your time. Sweater hats and picnic table cloth pants. Easy. I say that because, let me think on it. I say that because you talk about, this is probably Who Are You right now, right? Only because it's like both. Common decided, because I saw an interview with him when this album was coming out, and he said, and I'm not going to quote, but this is what he said. He go to parties, right? And everybody's party records are getting played, but he never hear his music. And he wanted to make an album that was full of party records so that when he went to the club, he would at least hear one of his tunes being played, because he felt like, because of the type of music he made, he didn't necessarily make quote unquote party music, and that's why people wouldn't play his records in the club. Which I get, you done put out a couple of albums, you know what I'm saying? You done been around since the early 90s, I could dig it. But you talk about an album that was trash. You talk about an album that I will never go back and listen to. There's no way, no. Electric Circus, yeah, I knew Electric Circus was different, but it wasn't different in the way Universal Mind Control was. Universal Mind Control was something else. And it was probably because Common's flow and voice and cadence just did not mesh well with those beats. He didn't, to me, if you ask me, he didn't necessarily know how to write party records. You know what I'm saying? It just felt a little out of touch. Like, what party are you going to? And I get it. You know what I'm saying? And I'm glad he was able to do that as an artist, express himself in that way. But please don't do that ever, ever again. The Dreamer, The Believer. How do you not own this? This is an album that when it came out, because Common released that whack joint before this, when it came out, that Common was making another comeback, right? He's with No ID. I think No ID did like the whole album, and he was back. Like, it was like, yo, he's back. This is it. He's back in the building. It's dope. And it was. You have Blue Sky, crazy beat, dope lyrics, and then you release another song with featuring you and Nas for the first time, and it's crazy. Crazy record. Album itself, if you're a Common fan, how do you not own this? It's good. It's really good. It's really good. I know I said Common Sense is good, but I mean it's really good. It's better than that. It's, if you jumped in on the Common bandwagon and this was the first album you heard, I wouldn't even be mad at you. Because at least if you hear this album, you can go to the other albums that are good and still feel like you're listening to the same guy. You go anywhere below, how do you know not own this? Then you like, who is this? So it is what it is. Then Common released Nobody's Smiling. This was off the heels of all the Black Lives Matter stuff, and Common wanted to do like a Chicago-oriented album. And I kind of liked it. But it was a mixed bag of music. But I think it's still good. I don't think it's that bad. I mean, I don't think it's bad at all, to be honest, but I felt like the collaborations he did worked enough to me. But okay, I'm lying, y'all. I wasn't liking it that much. It's Who Are You Right Now. Let's just keep it 100. Honestly, a couple of records work for me. I like to do that from time to time if you looked at my tier list before. A couple of records worked for me. Don't get me wrong. But at the end of the day, it just didn't do enough to make me feel like I would ever go back and listen to it. Obviously, I probably will, and I probably would move it up to Common Sense. So let's stop playing. It's not that bad. It's good. It's Common Sense. You see, it's April Fool's Day. If from the future, you know what to do. Get your ass out of here. But keeping it 100, it's a good album. I wouldn't be mad if someone said they didn't like it. I just wouldn't. Then he followed that up with Black America, which this one is difficult for me. I think it's good. I say that only because I feel like the subject matter was timely. I feel like musically, it was really good. It was more mature. It wasn't really like hip hop-ish and boom bap beats. And if you look at the Common Sense section, it's a lot of different looks of Common as far as musically and the beats he chose. And I didn't feel it was bad. I know some people did, but I liked it. I mean, I'm into the conscious stuff as long as it's not too heavy, but I felt like it sounds really good as an album. And I felt like lyrically Common did what he's best at. in regards to, being a person who can be descriptive about feelings and the state of things and stuff like that. It got him an Oscar and a Grammy off the strength of that. So from the song on the Selma soundtrack. So I think Black America Again, is I think it's a dope album. But I think it's just good. And again, it's another one of those categories. If some people felt like it was whack or some people felt like it was really good, I really wouldn't argue either way, because it could be forgettable and it could be great at the same time. And lastly, Common's last album released, Let Love. It was actually an album to pair with his memoir that came out, and a lot of people ignored this album. And it's unfortunate because I think people were still expecting those albums that fall around this area. I think people were still looking for this. When they got these, they were looking for these. And so these start to sound like this to them. But in actuality, if you just take the music as it is, Let Love is probably a common sense album. Why? Because just like Black America Again, it's a beautiful album musically. Knowing this is like a pairing with a memoir where he talks about his life deeper than he's done in some of his lyrics, and reveals a couple of personal things about his personal life, I expected the production to be different. I expected it to not be boom bap. I think there's one or two straight up hip hop records on here. Like the rest have a more jazzy feel, you know what I'm saying, to the music, which I'm all into. I'm all for it. But again, I can see a person looking at Let Love and saying that album is trash. Or another person coming in and saying, man, that was such a great album, man. I'm just mad people slept on it. And I would agree with you there. So let's go over the tier list real quick. I know some people are shocked there's only one whack album here, because they probably have everything but two albums in the whack category. But let's go over it. Sweater Hats and Picnic Tablecloth Pants, the whack album. Common's undeniably wackest album in his career, Universal Mind Control. In the Who Are You Right Now category is Common's debut album, Can I Borrow a Dollar? Sorry, I wasn't feeling it like you was. I'm sorry. In the Common Sense category, meaning good, is Electric Circus, which used to be very whack to me, but in 2020, it's not bad. Nobody's Smiling, Black America Again, and Common's latest album, Let Love. In the How Do You Not Own This category is Common's Resurrection, Finding Forever, and The Dreamer and the Believer. To me, three very dope albums. If you told me any of these three was whack, don't talk to me ever again. And in the classic category, I have Common having three undeniable classics to me. One being One Day It'll All Make Sense, Like Water for Chocolate, and B. So what's your list look like? How do you rank Common's catalog? Have you heard all of these albums? You have Tidal or one of these other streaming services where you like, I'm about to go listen and then I'm going to do your tier list. Well, all you got to do is follow me on Twitter or Instagram. I'm going to post not only the video and audio to this very tier list, which you've already found, but also the link to the list so you can go and fill it out yourself. And hey, let me know where you rank these albums, because I'll be curious to know, did I overlook something? Is Electric Circus still whack in 2020? I don't think so, but what do you think? Leave your comments in the comment section below. Please know that this podcast is available wherever you listen to podcasts. All you got to do is type in the words Hip Hop Now Podcast in your favorite app. Hit that subscribe button, like button, and you'll be blasting off every week with more and more hip hop content. Until next time, y'all, I am not a critic. I'm a fan. Peace. Drop it on the random.